Going live. Okay. Hi, everybody. Please let me know how the sound is because I'm using my microphone today and I'm using my iPad. I'm always trying something new, which is silly, but I'm trying to get the hang of this. So please let me know. Zoe, what? Okay, you have to be completely quiet though, okay? All right, thank you. Just bribing my children. Um, with candy to be quiet. Um, it's always chaotic here. It's always chaotic here. Um, I don't see any comments yet, so hopefully like it's working. Just yeah. Even a thumbs up if everything's working. Soda, you need to stop, okay? It's fine. Well, we are going to get into it, guys. I went this week, of course, because I wasn't sick like last week, to the Millete trial. That is, of course, Larry Millete's trial, who is on trial for disappearing his wife, Maya Millete. It is a no body case, entirely circumstantial, but it's going to be 3 months of circumstantial evidence, apparently. So this is week 3. I was sick last week. I have been doing streams every week before. If you want to catch up, Fridays at 6, I've been going live. Oh, thank you. And yeah, so I am going to get you guys caught up on this week. A lot happened this week. It was a pretty exciting week, I would say. There was some boring stuff, but Larry's and Maya's friend, Maya's sister-in-law, testified. That was just the other day. I'm going to get this loaded up here. And let's see, what else was exciting? There was cell phone data. There was a lot of texts, which got into like the spell casters, the Etsy witches. Yeah, if you didn't know, there's Etsy witches, which I think is a huge selling point of the case. All right. What else? Let's see. There was a lot of footage, a lot of body cam. I'm worried about the mayor of CV attending. Okay, yeah. Let me get into that. So okay, I think just 1 second. Okay. Getting my notes, getting my X loaded up here. So, yeah, John McCann, the mayor of Chula Vista, which Chula Vista is the like town that this took place in. It's San Diego County. But oh, hello. I'm doing 2 streams, so sorry if I'm looking in the wrong place. Yeah, so John McCann came. He showed up just randomly, it seemed like. I don't know if the family knew he was coming, but it was very unceremonious. Like he was wearing a nice suit and his mayoral seal, and he took pictures with the family, sat on the family's side, made it very clear that he was supporting Maya's family and not being neutral. And Lindsay Sabatini for the defense brought that up to uh, to everybody. She put it on the record the day after, and she had a lot to say about that, but she was like, right now we're just putting it on the record. I just think it should be on the record that the mayor of Chula Vista was here, and he made it very clear. Do I think it can negatively affect the case? So I don't know, because what Miss Sabatini brought up was, you know, and maybe she put it on the record to make a record of it for appeal, or maybe it's leading into something else and she's doing research on case law. I don't know, but there might be a situation. What she brought up was that there was bias, that it was clear in front of the jurors. And yeah, I at the time didn't think anything of it. I thought it was weird. Um, I thought it was from out of nowhere, but at the time I didn't think so. But when Miss Sabatini brought that up, that it does show something to the jurors, and the fact that she wanted to make a strong record of it to the judge and for the record, yeah, something might be coming. A motion might be coming. If this has happened before or in other cases, like, I don't even know if anything on appeal would work, but if a court has ever said that a government, official, like a mayor, coming to the trial and showing bias, like, in front of the jurors, was a reason for, like, to overturn a conviction or something, or a mistrial or whatever the situation was, yeah, like, then Sabatini's gonna find that case and she's gonna write a big motion. So I would keep an eye on it. Well, me with you, I know. So that's a huge concern for me as well, that there could be a mistrial, because the defense is very competent and they're very good at finding things to use for their advantage. They got the cameras successfully out. They advocated strongly enough that they got the cameras out of this case. So I don't know. It would just be like, I don't know. Almost like one of the worst things that could happen after all this, to have a mistrial. So it's definitely something I worry about. So yeah, I will keep an eye on that and let you guys know. If anybody knows espresso, sorry, I just called you espresso instead of your full name, but do you know any cases that have had the mayor of a town show up and show clear bias for it to affect the jury in a negative way, for the court to think it affects the jury in a negative way? Has that ever been an appellate issue? Do you know anything like that? Just throwing it out there, because the mayor of Chula Vista came to the trial and he took pictures with the victim's family. And like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I'm not saying that. I only care about the life, or the trial, the integrity of the trial and any risks. So I thought this was going to work better. All right. If there are any other quick questions, I'm going to try to, like, not look at the chat that. Okay, it stopped. It stopped working. Where are we at, guys? Oh no. Okay. Are we there? Is it working now? I got a call. It forwarded to my iPad. I'm so sorry. Let's jump right back into it. And yeah, so I'm just gonna limit looking at chat for distractions. But okay, here we go. We're gonna start off with, well, first of all, I didn't go to every single session of court, okay? I am solo parenting right now. I have 2 kids on my own, and babysitters cost a lot of money, and also just time away from them. Court can be really long, and yeah, so I hate that. I can't be there all the time in court, but I'm doing my best to see everything I can, and I have been able to get a seat. It's been close a couple times, but I have been there every time I have showed up. So day 9 was Monday. I went to both sessions. I missed like an hour when I was picking up my kids, but I did morning and afternoon. And oh yeah, I want to say, don't forget to like the stream and comment, because that really helps get it out. Like, we want to get this story out there. There's no cameras. This has been so limited in publicity. So anything you do for the algorithm, to show it, you know, it puts it out there more. Everything, Maya, justice, the fact that there's no cameras and how wrong that is, like, that gets put out there. This stream would be put out there. So please like it. Okay, so do you guys like the fashion updates? I've heard some mixed things, but mostly good. I think most people like the way I cover the trial on X. I do minute by minute updates. I literally, and that's on my little name tag there, at Millete Trial is my X handle. My at Maggie Winterton handle on Twitter is just for personal, mainly sports content. And that is, Zoe, please don't. Please don't. Shh. Thank you. Okay. The fashion content. If you don't find it insensitive, on X, I usually, that's one of the first things I do when the attorneys arrive. So I wrote that Christy Bowles has arrived to the courtroom. She's wearing a gray skirt suit today. It's very cute with some pleating at the bottom. That was true. It was very nice. And I think the attorneys try not to, even though there's no cameras, I feel like they try not to repeat outfits. And I feel like they're trying to put Larry Millete in not the same outfits as well, because he keeps having like new colors and new shirts. Are they renting clothes for him? I don't know. His lawyer on the defense, Mr. Colby Ryan, is a really snappy dresser. I enjoy looking at his outfits every day. Sometimes it's a little much for a trial like this, but I think he's totally picking out stuff for Larry and probably doing like Rent the Runway or something. Like, I don't know, because Larry, he always wears a button up, usually patterned, and then a sweater on top. And then he has, I don't really look at his pants. So, okay. So Christy Bowles was in a gray skirt suit that day. This is June 1st. Then I said the defense has arrived. I need a better look at Mr. Colby Ryan, but Miss Leanne Sabatini is in an oversized eggplant colored suit. That was an interesting one. That was really interesting. She usually wears big pantsuits that are oversized and just that oversized look. It was like a deep, deep, deep purple. Okay. Jurors went in. We got started a little late that day, and I think that the bailiffs didn't open the court for us, but I think they were arguing something. I think the attorneys and judge were talking that whole time because we got started late. A lot of the time it ends up being 9:30 instead of 9, but this was even more. Okay, so Detective Vicente was the witness. He's the leading investigator. If you ever watched my first stream, I talked about how there was a figure, if you've ever watched the Karen Reed case, and especially now it's relevant and maybe less equivalent, but there's a figure in this case that maybe has screwed up the case, kind of like Michael Proctor. And now that he's testified, I don't know if that's true, but he has screwed it up. He has screwed up the investigation, Detective Vicente. And I just don't think there's any getting around that, unfortunately. The defense can use that for their gain, and cross-examination. I think they got places with him, so I'll talk about that. But overall, he's not a proctor. He's a good man, I think. Like, we don't have his text messages or anything, but yeah, I think he's like a normal human being. All right, so Detective Vicente, he now works for the district attorney's office. Interesting. But before that, he was with Chula Vista Police Department for 18 years. And he started there. He worked his way up. He was at the Crimes and Violence Unit. And he was told to look into the case originally from one of the officers that was there taking the initial call. Zoe, excuse me. Can you please go upstairs if you're going to make sounds? It's distracting. Please. All right. Sorry, guys. This is real mom life. Yeah, my house, everything. I know. I'm doing my best. All right. So, where was I here? Vicente. One of the officers who was there that night initially that took the call said to Vicente that the case didn't sit right with him. And so that's when Vicente got involved as the lead investigator. So Bowles asks Vicente how he began his investigation, and when Vicente said January 11th, and he was assigned to be the lead investigator. So then they started talking. Bowles is the prosecution, by the way, if I didn't say. I think I did. She didn't say. They started talking about how at the beginning, one of the first things he did was talk to friends and family, and then he got Larry's phone, and something the defense brought up was like, he just gave you his phone, right? Like, he didn't put up a fight or anything. And that's true. Larry willingly just handed over his phone. Though this is days after Maya disappeared, keep in mind. Everything that happened with the police was days after Maya was last seen on January 7th. Okay. So Bowles was getting evidence ready, and I said a fashion update. I said, Mr. Ryan is in a blue plaid suit with a salmon-colored tie and pocket square. The pocket square and the tie matched. It was salmon, and it kind of had something on it that I couldn't quite make out. It was somewhat of a pattern, but mostly salmon. And he rarely wears solid suits. He usually wears plaid suits. Larry Millete is wearing a green sweater and a green plaid button-up underneath. I think Mr. Ryan must really like plaid, Okay. Body cam. Bowles is showing body cam evidence on screen to show him meeting up with Larry to get his phone. And then Vicente took it to the digital evidence unit, and after it was extracted, he gave the phone back to Larry. this beginning stuff was kind of showing a good chain of command. There was, in this investigation, good chain of command, chain of custody. Chain of custody, I mean, like, it seems all up the up and up, and Prosecutor Bowles spends a lot of time going through that with everybody. She wants everybody to, like, know that the defense can't do anything with that. It's like, they go over it so detailed. It's like, so and so had this, and then on this day they gave it to them, and sometimes it's even on video, you know. So I do trust that part of the investigation for sure. I mean, yeah, it's more what wasn't done that I think the investigation failed at. It did, in my opinion. And I'm still finding things out. We're sitting through the trial. I haven't made up my mind about anything. I want to hear all the evidence. So, all right, on screen, Bowles is showing an aerial view of the Millete's home neighborhood. It's an entirely residential area. I wrote, Maggie note, Vicente is low-key stumbling over some words. He seems nervous. He's doing well, but it is a contrast to other police witnesses, in my opinion. And I said, just being your eyes and ears here. I didn't want to come off judgmental, but, like, or negative, or, you know, just, I don't take it anything for other than face value, and me trying to, like, do something for, like, to make up. There's no cameras, you know? So I'm trying to give you a sense of what is really happening. So, yeah, he was kind of shiny, like he might be sweating, and it got worse as the day went on. He was very, like, he's maybe just not a good public speaker at all. Maybe that's totally it, but he seemed kind of nervous, and I think it was just, you know, probably anticipating a pretty brutal cross examination from the defense, because they've gone in really hard on their papers, on their motions. They've, you know, said he was terrible, and so I think he probably was nervous and being justified in it. But if he's a cop, I expected him to be less nervous. And he was the most nervous witness we've seen. All right. I'm going to get another drink. Sorry. Okay. Bowles asks Vicente about the security footage in the surrounding homes. Vicente says he collected a lot of footage, but some of the footage is not continuously recorded. Bowles asks if he made a chart to identify all the homes and their footage, and he said yes. So then we looked at this aerial map, basically, of this entirely residential area, so you can get a sense of where the Millete house is. And it was very helpful. It was really good visual. And then we would go back and forth between that and the chart that described all of the places, that all the addresses, the homes that were able to get, like, security footage or surveillance. There, he made note of, like, if it was continuous recording or if it was, like, motion like sensor, and that was really good chart. So there were 7 or 8 different addresses, and I didn't want to, like, say they went through it and had arrows to each house, like, on the map, so you could see, like, which, you know, house had this footage and what, because different vantage points. But it was really, I just, for privacy reasons, didn't feel like, you know, although it's highly publicized, the Millete address, and they used the addresses a lot when describing these things, I just didn't feel comfortable saying the addresses. And I wanted to just describe kind of where the houses were instead. Okay. Without giving out addresses, we're going through the first home surveillance, which included 2 cameras. The time span obtained from the footage was January 7th through 10th. And then they show a different one. Vicente was showing where it was on the map, so you could understand. He says it had a Nest continuous recording camera. It pointed out to the intersection near the Millete home. And there were 57 hours of footage alone on that address that Vicente went through himself. The home directly south of the Millete house had 4 different cameras, and they had continuous recording, and it was stored on a hard drive. But there was no audio on those. There was over 100 hours of footage from that home. Vicente reviewed it all. Wow. Like obviously some of this stuff was like from far away, and like it's dark, hard to see the minutia of this. Like that had to take a long time to do that. All of these. All right. Jurors seem engaged and are taking a few notes. That was good. They did seem very engaged. This is the morning, though. 4th home, it had 1 doorbell camera. Bowles asks how Vicente requested the camera footage, and Vicente says he went door to door to ask for consent. This home has the angle of May arriving home in her Jeep on January 7th at 3:22 p.m. So you've probably seen that video if you follow the case. If you don't know much about it, there is a video. Oh my gosh, my doggies. I'm so sorry for the toe tapping sounds. They're just walking around. There is a really, it went around a lot to show May getting home. This video and stills from the video. You can see her getting home, and then they go to the car wash, and then they come back. And then that evening, like, that's the last time you see her, when she's getting out of that Jeep. So it's very important. 5th home, Vicente did not personally handle this home's security camera footage and says that he thinks it had 1 motion sensor. I thought that was significant. This is Soda. She wants her 15 minutes of fame. She wants it now. And she wants all the scritches. So, anyways, I thought it was really interesting that he said, I think. He didn't know, and it wasn't on the chart, and he didn't remember. Like, I thought that was interesting. Appreciate the work keeping us informed. My son's babysitter used to live down the street from him. I'm so sorry for the noise. Thank you, and you're welcome. This is important to me. I'm doing it to get the story out because it's important to me. All right. So yeah, Vicente didn't know that. 6th home. Vicente did not review this home's footage personally either. As with home 5, another member of the investigation team reviewed the footage. However, Vicente was able to explain that it was a Wise camera system with 2 cameras. Home 7, a Nest camera system, was voluntarily turned over to police. The owners called into the police themselves, and they said that they had the home footage containing some sounds from January 7th. And we actually meet that homeowner later. I'm not going to give the name to or the address because I just don't feel like it's necessary. Like, this isn't, it's just not. I don't know if that's, I don't know. I really want to be respectful of people's privacy. They didn't really ask for this to happen, to come upon footage that shows, or, sounds that might be during that kind of violent event. They didn't want that. They're just trying to do the right thing. Okay. One camera, I wasn't sure which one, they went through it fast, catches the full clip of Maya arriving to her home on January 7th, but it didn't show the time. Some footage had some issues. This one didn't have any time that Maya was seen leaving the home. I'm unclear if we moved on to an 8th home or not, but we are reviewing the next door neighbor's Ring camera footage. These cameras captured any activity the sensor picked up, and those clips were about 2 minutes long. So it's not perfect. It's not it's not simple. They all this different camera footage, different cameras, they have different things. So that was a big part of the investigation too, was the footage. Bowles is reading out addresses and asking questions about what clips were significant. Vicente is showing the aerial map. Did I read that? Yeah. And then you see Maya get in, go to the car wash, and then get out and come home. I wrote, Sabatini is taking a lot of notes. She was furiously scribbling. She was on fire with that pen. It's hard to describe the photo we are looking at now. It shows where the 2 main homes with footage are when you're standing in the street in front of the Millete home, essentially. One thing they did well was kind of orientating us to the vantage point of just visually, at least for me, I'm a very visual person, understanding where the homes were and what they could see, and then showing, and this is the camera. So that's why it looks this way, is because it was this direction from the house. Bowles is showing the minutia of the video files as seen in an organized folder in a computer. Vicente says that he organized this folder with the best clips available and relabeled them. Since he went through so much footage, he ended up clipping and put them all in a folder. And I don't know, because I don't think that the defense really got into this, but they just spent a lot of time going over this. I did tweet about that. So Vicente says that his team had trouble sorting the clips in a chronological manner, and that's why he needed to change some of the labels. They pointed that out. They're like, and so these files were originally named something else, but then it changed, didn't it? So they went over that a lot. Took a lot of time. Bowles asks him to explain, and Vicente is trying to explain that there were duplicate files. Sabatini looking very engaged in this. Bowles is going into a lot of detail about the chain of custody of these clips, the labels, who reviewed them, where the files were stored. And during this, the jurors did look less engaged. There are 58 good video clips. The last clip, if you're thinking about it chronologically, it shows when the police arrived at the house for the initial welfare check. Bowles asks if some clips had timestamps originally, and Vicente said that originally no, some did not. The timestamps were added later for some angles. So I guess Bowles brought that up to not for the defense not to be able to attack it. Because just every little thing, the defense will use. That's the defense's job. So I feel like I'm taking a long time. I'm going to try to go through some of these faster. Please let me know how you guys are doing. I will look at the chat if you have any suggestions, if anything is wrong. Larry doesn't have much reaction ever, although I can't fully see his face. I'm sitting behind the defense table. Larry is mostly stoic. And then I wrote, but I just saw his shoulder twitch. He's shifting in his seat. We're watching footage now. I will, at this time, go over this. I sit usually on the defense side because there's more room and I have my laptop in my bag. And so I just, like, nobody wants to sit by Larry, or it's like behind him. And I'm like, whatever. And so I sit with someone from NBC usually. And then I can just like type. We're both just like typing. I think he has the same idea. So I can see the back of him usually. And like, I just look for movement, but he's usually just like very like not with his eyes closed, but I don't know why I did that. He's just sitting there like this. And he doesn't even move his head that much. He doesn't have much facial reaction from what I've seen and what others have told me. I think me paying attention to his movement of his shoulders says something because he doesn't move very much or show anything on his face. So what I described there was that he twitched his shoulder, and it was like I don't know if it was just like random or if it's like a tick. Like he does move his shoulders a little bit sometimes when things are uncomfortable. And I mean, I think it would be uncomfortable for him. I don't know. But normally they're still, and also maybe some of it is like sitting in court all day and being uncomfortable. I mean, I move, but he really doesn't move that much. He has his hands always just like in his lap like this, or maybe writing something. He does take notes sometimes. So that's Larry. He keeps pretty stoic. Okay, I'm gonna take another drink. So yeah, this was really hard. At 3:13 in this clip, it includes audio of the children getting into the car to go to the car wash. There was captions, and one of the children asks if he can go to the car wash, please. And Larry seemed very engaged, like in his screen and like just in everything, like when this was happening, like it's his children. Maya says yes, that they can go to the car wash. It was hard to hear. And then you hear one of the kids say, yay! And someone in the gallery said, aw. And I couldn't believe it. I know, Zoe. I know. So, someone in the gallery said aw, but nothing happened. But it was kind of like that. It personally broke my heart to hear that, because that was the last day they ever spent with their mother. So then they go to the car wash and they come home. I said, this is a nice presentation video that includes the maps between to orient the jurors. So they showed a bunch of footage. A lot of it is available online. Like I said, Maya arriving home with the Jeep and then going to the car wash and then coming back, and she enters the house and then she never leaves. There's no video. Spoiler alert, there's no video of Maya ever coming out of that house. And they had a lot of different angles. So now we're going to focus on the clip with the Lexus at 5:59 p.m. Oh no, I skipped one, sorry. Bowles asks if you can ever see Maya on the clips after she enters the house at 4:45 p.m. Vicente says no. Bowles asks if they are motion activated cameras, and then he was like, I can't testify to the sensitivity of the cameras. So, I mean, I don't know why he didn't say like some of the cameras are, some aren't, and in this one it is. I don't know. It was weird, I thought. Now we're going to focus on clips with the Lexus. At 5:59 a.m., Larry's Lexus is backed into the garage at an odd angle. The footage also shows the Lexus leaving and coming home that day. At 6:29 p.m., a dark vehicle pulls up and someone gets out of the car and walks toward the house. Bowles says that we have previous testimony that Maya's brother identified himself in that footage. Vicente agrees. So that was Don't need to worry about that person. We went to break, and then the judge had something to put on the record. And he said that the court received a letter from KUSI's lawyer to reconsider cameras in the courtroom. And he kind of was mumbling, and I didn't get all of it, and it was a surprise, and I wasn't fully ready, but he was just kind of like, yeah, and blah, 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 and they, want me to reconsider, and I have, looked at this thoroughly, and this is just for the record. And then he kind of chuckled, and he was like, I am not allowing cameras. This letter has not changed my mind. He said it like that. So that was disappointing because my ears really perked up. I really thought that maybe he would actually reconsider, but it seems like he really, really didn't consider at all. Bowles wants to put something on the record too. The defense submitted some exhibits to her, and she objects to them, which it was body-worn camera footage when the phones were taken. And the whole issue was that, Miss Bowles didn't want the audio of the clip. So then Sabatini was like, I'll take it out. And the judge was like, yeah, I think the video itself is admissible, and it does demonstrate that there's non-confrontational behavior in it. And Miss Bowles was like, that's debatable, but I don't know. I thought it was interesting the judge thought that, and that's why he let it in, because it allows the defense to be like, see, Larry gave over his phone, just like that. No big deal, and he was a nice guy. All right, so Larry, we're back to the Larry's Lexus SUV. He backs it up to the garage, and then the next clip is 6:43 a.m., and it's daylight, and it was easier to see, but the footage was still super zoomed in and therefore grainy. I just saw Mr. Ryan nod and point at the screen and gesture to Miss Sabatini, and now they're talking. I don't know, what that was about. I still don't know. But he was like, I know you've seen this, Mr. Ryan, but I don't know. They saw something. Just something additionally they wanted to point out? I don't know. Okay. So Larry left the neighborhood. He moved his car at about 6 a.m. and then it's light out at 6:43. And then at 6:46 a.m., the clip shows him leaving the neighborhood. And then we watched one that was really zoomed in and one that really wasn't zoomed in. It was, I don't know why, but they had both versions of the same video, and I don't know why we had to watch it. Larry leave so close up and so far away. It wasn't really explained. And let's see, I said that Larry Millete is looking at the monitor as if he's never seen this footage. That's how engaged he is. And I don't know how much, I'm sure he's seen the footage, but I don't know how much he has seen it. So maybe it is very interesting. But he was just kind of leaning forward. Just leaning. Bowles. I stopped the video at 6:06 a.m., but this video is continuous, right? Vicente. Yes. Bowles begins the video again at 6:44. So she was just scrubbing through the video. And then, yeah, showed more video of the same thing. A lot of the time was spent looking at the same footage, basically. So then Vicente talks about how he made about 100 hours of security footage into a time-lapse video, and I guess that's what Bowles was using. She has a little iPad that she has hooked up to the TV, and she can scrub through. Did he really cry? I didn't see it, but that's what I heard too. I I didn't see it. I didn't see him wipe away any tears. I don't know. I think it would be hard to tell. Okay. So then we skipped to talking about another camera setup and the direction it's pointed. Some of the jurors look a little confused. It was hard to follow. It was really hard to follow. Bowles was like, was this timestamp for this address correct? No, we had to like redo it. He said that these cameras ran faster than others in the neighborhood. So I guess that they synced it up. I mean, they said they did, but that's weird and definitely just like an issue. And I don't know if the jury would ever be like, well, you know, I don't know if it matters. I don't know if that matters to them. The first segment of time, Bowles says, is the time when May arrived back at the house at 4:43 p.m. Yeah, we go through this whole time-lapse video again. And Larry was looking at the screen, very, very engaged. Then we went to the clip with the bangs, okay? So they're not GUN shots necessarily, but that's what it sounds like. At 8:45 p.m., there is audio on the time-lapse video. You can hear a loud bang. Bowles said one loud bang, and then Vicente was like, there's multiple, which there was a lot. There was like, it would be like one, and then this is Kenzie. He's also saying hi. Zoe, can you help me with the dogs at all? He's like shaking the table. Just lay down, Kenzie. It's fine. I don't know. These dogs are like, what are you doing over here, Mom? Who are you talking to? Okay. Thank you, dogs. Okay. There was multiple loud bangs like that, which was Soda's head. Soda, get down. Can you get them treats? Zoe, would you mind getting them treats, please? Please? I'll give you more Whoppers. You're not going to do it? You're not going to help me? You see me dying on the screen here in real time? Okay. All right, fine. All right. There was a lot of bangs. They do sound like what you would think. Bowles asks, were you ever able to determine what those loud bangs were? And Vicente says no. They were not able to. They didn't get into it very much because, hi, Lena. In the motions in limine, which I went to, which is deciding what comes in and what stays out as far as evidence. I really need a drink, sorry. Thanks, Zoe. The defense didn't really want them to talk about how what happened in real life was the FBI analyzed the sounds on that video and determined that it was undeterminable, that one could not determine if they were real shots or not. So then they went to lunch that day. Okay, then we came back and it was cross-examination. And I was late getting back from lunch because picking up my kids. And it was still, Detective Vicente. I wrote, at first glance, this looks a bit testy. It did look intense. And I think this is why he was nervous and why he was more sweaty when I got back from lunch. So Sabatini is asking about a missing persons policy and if Vicente followed correct protocol. Sabatini is talking about witness interviewing and steps an investigator must take to investigate persons. The jurors are a mixed bag. Some look thoughtful and some look kind of done with this. And Christy Bowles was furiously writing something down. I took a minute to adjust to coming into the courtroom. And I sat down and I was observing the jurors, and there was just a lot of different facial expressions. Some were like, engaged. Some were like, some just kind of looked tired. It was really a mixed bag. So I couldn't tell what the vibe was, except that Vicente and Sabatini weren't, seeing eye to eye on stuff. So then, let's see. I said, you would agree that corroborating witness information is critical, right? Vicente said yes. She presses further if Vicente would press further if someone had an alibi, and if they would, if he would get into it, was the conversation, right? Sabatini does her cross-examinations very conversational style. She's like setting something up, and then she kind of like asks her question. This was setting up a lot of foundation for trying to get into Maya's lover stuff. It was a lot of foundation, and it was taking a long time. And then it was break, and then I saw John McCann, the mayor, there. And he was meeting with Maya's family, like the whole break. Took a picture. It's probably on his, Facebook. We're back on the record. Bowles has an issue. She thinks the defense has began to hint at something that the judge already ruled out. I think any attempt to suggest to this detective that Janie Laird had anything to do with this is in violation of the court's ruling. Sabatini doesn't agree. She says there is quite a bit of evidence against Mr. Laird, Maya's affair partner. She believes she has kept the general questions in compliance with the judge's ruling. Which I think she had. She was setting up foundation, and you could tell she was going to get into third-party culprit, which was ruled out. Another motions in limine thing, which is a huge win for the prosecution. Sabatini said, "You've gutted our defense," when the judge ruled that they could not specifically point the finger at Jamie Laird. So then Miss Sabatini said, "I think this investigation should be tested. I don't agree that I insinuated or implied anybody, but I intend to test the integrity of the investigation and how thorough it was or how not thorough it was." Judge, can you ask generally? Yes, but if you continue with some of the investigation questions as pointedly as you were being with the foundation, there may be some objections sustained. This was lengthy. Bowles wants to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Judge says, let's hash this out now without the jury. And then Attorney Ryan was like, what are we even allowed to question at this point? He was sitting at his computer like he always is. Miss Sabatini's arguing, but he was sitting and he was like, what are we even allowed to argue at this point? Judge, we know that no witness can opine that another has lied. So we have that. This trial is not going to be about whether Mr. Laird had anything to do with it. I excluded that. Sabatini, based on the prosecution's reaction, you can tell the prosecution so badly wants to exclude this because there's evidence. There is evidence. Sabatini, we're being denied a fair cross-examination, which is Mr. Milliete's constitutional right. She said this much more eloquently than I am now, but she talks fast. It was hard to get it all. I'm so sorry about the dog noises and cat noises. My cat's coming over now. All right, Judge, based on my ruling... Oh, no, I skipped one. Sabatini said, "We want to show the jury the full truth. We should be able to cross-examine on the entire investigation. We are not being able to cross-examine on massive portions of the investigation. Judge, based on my ruling, how far do you think you can get?" Sabatini, "That's the court's job." She said it like that. "I have to do my job. The court's ruling excludes my ability to point the finger at Mr. Laird. I should be able to cross-examine other parts of the investigation. It is very clear from where we sit that they zeroed in on Larry, and we need to present this in front of the jury how that happened. The jury should be able to scrutinize this. Not being able to even establish Mr. Laird's role in any of this doesn't seem even in line with the court's ruling, and it denies an effective defense." Bowles stepped in, and then she was like, "Jamie Laird is completely excluded, and the defense shouldn't even be able to go down that road." I don't know why I did that voice, but that's kind of where her voice was at, was a little bit of a higher pitch. Oh my Lord. This is terrible. This is terrible. Domino. Why would you do that? Yay. This is great. Okay. Sorry for the cat interruption. This bird fell. And some other stuff. Patriotic stuff from Target. Yay, Target. All right. I don't know what I was saying, but I'm just going to get into... Yeah, Bowles was upset. And I said, the judge is listening, but definitely reading something on his computer right now. Bowles, the court has excluded pointing the finger at him, so this whole line of questioning is irrelevant. And the judge goes kind of like this. I agree with Miss Bowles. Judge Camarena wants to go question by question on where the detectives went in this very long investigation. The jury is back. Vicente is on the stand. Sabatini and Ryan have been chatting. Sabatini is looking over some notes. And then I wrote that I think it felt like the defense was thrown off by this. They looked a little scrambly. They looked a little scrambled. They got back on the record, and Sabatini says the witness's mic is not on. That was true. That was true. Vicente had to turn his mic back on. And then she said, I want to talk about your role in the investigation, because it was like a 9-month investigation, right? Vicente said yes. So then she kind of asks some setup questions here, foundational. She establishes that Vicente wrote an affidavit for the arrest of Larry Millete, and that those affidavits for the arrest warrants must include facts that support probable cause. And, Vicente's just agreeing with everything. She's kind of making statements, and he's saying yes. At that point, your investigation wasn't done, but you had a suspect. I wrote the wrong thing there. Okay. All right, let's start over. At that point, your investigation wasn't done, but you had a suspect. And he's like, yes. And then Sabatini said, you never considered anyone else a suspect? And that was a big objection, and it was sustained. I don't know. That's a tough one, but it was sustained. So they're hinting at the third-party culprit thing there. Sabatini presses Vicente on what he knew about Maya's affair and her lover. She said her lover was a subordinate, correct? And there was an objection, and that was also sustained. And I don't really know if that was just to show, shade at Maya, or if it was to kind of, start to point a finger. I don't know. So then she said, in your investigation, you learned that Maya carried on her affair up until she disappeared. Objection again from Bowles, and it was sustained. And then Sabatini asked for a sidebar. So they did a sidebar. It was really, really, really long. I don't remember how long, but everybody was talking and the jurors were passing around candy. Like, sorry, I'm just trying to like get my notes. There's a basket of candy and the bailiffs handed it to the jurors and they were just all passing it around and everybody's like laughing and eating candy, and then some of the family got the candy too. The bailiffs gave it to them, and I wrote about that because I just thought it was funny. That's not something you would see on TV, but it was cute. Oh, the judge told us to talk amongst ourselves before he exited for the sidebar. He's really cool. Deputy did not find the candy she wanted. She wanted chocolate. There was no chocolate candy. All right. Long notes. Long sidebar here. Okay, we finally got back. I wonder how long that was, actually. It was at least 20 minutes. It was pretty long. And it was about the third-party culprit, I'm sure. And so then Sabatini said, I want to talk to you about your arrest warrant again. We were talking about your arrest warrant affidavit. She seemed thrown off, like she didn't know what to say or how to word it. Part of your investigation entailed searching in an area of San Miguel Ranch, correct? Vicente, yes. Sabatini establishes that that search was in May and that it was based on the last cell site ping for Maya's phone. And Vicente was just agreeing, and he's like, yep. And then Sabatini said, CellHawk was the company and software you consulted, correct? And Vicente said yes. And then she said, CellHawk takes cell phone carrier data and puts it in a format that's easier to read, correct? And Vicente actually said that he didn't know. And I thought that was a pretty good summation, and that was just for the jury to help them understand what CellHawk is and the purpose. He didn't know. Sabatini, you went to that neighborhood because you consulted with the DA who used CellHawk to determine that that was the last ping of Miss Millete's cell, correct? Yes. So then they started talking about the search. Sabatini pointed out that in 3.5 hours, nothing was found. And then Sabatini said, in your arrest warrant, you don't talk about that search at all, right? And then there was an objection, and the judge went, sustained. I don't know what that was about. More questions, more objections. Sabatini was trying to get questions out, but Bowles wasn't even letting her start to get questions out. So do not know, and Sabatini just switched gears. Sabatini is talking about the canvas for video surveillance. She says that no one saw anything suspicious, right? And Vicente says, yes. Vicente does bring up that a neighbor had heard children's voices at around 10 p.m., but then Sabatini's like, yeah, but that family didn't hear it in real time, did they? They only heard it when they went over the surveillance video. So, I mean, yeah, that's something. And there was nothing that was called in. They go over that. There were no calls for service. There's something about a brush fire. I don't know why she brought that up, but there was a brush fire like in the hills near the home. I don't think affected anything at all. All right. then she kind of just she would bring something up, and it just wasn't really anything. And she was like, the video with the loud bangs, the audio was amplified 35 decibels, correct? And Vicente said yes. And I think that was just the only way she could get out the point that the video was edited, you know, the big loud bangs, they were turned up when they played it for the jury. And that was disclosed. It said plus 35 decibels. But I think she just wanted to draw attention to that. I'm sorry, it's a Diet Coke break. Okay. Then she started talking about, I'm just going to summarize, because she started talking about how it wasn't that unusual for Larry to reposition his car, and you can even see it. What, Zoe? No, you can't have Diet Coke. Go upstairs, please. Go upstairs. You're interrupting now. I'm not talking to you anymore. No, later. We'll talk about it later. All right. Sorry. Okay. How there's other times in the footage that you can see Larry is like moving his cars, and he would do that. He would reposition his cars. He has OCD that comes up. I've noticed how he moves papers and things on the desk so they're straight. I don't know if that's part of it, but yeah, so Larry repositioning his car, maybe not that strange is the point. Then she started talking about how there is a similar instance where Larry backed the Lexus up in a similar way. And then she said, some of the movement in those videos, you can't really discern what's happening in the video, correct? And then he said yes. And I mean, point taken, I guess. Sabatini states that Vicente performed an experiment to determine which one could observe people coming out of the drainage ditch behind the Milliete's street. So Vicente did do an experiment with somebody in his team, and they there's a drainage ditch behind the house, okay? And there was no camera angle that showed it. And so they get that out. And then also he did an experiment where he was standing with a member of his team, and he was the experiment was a little weird. He was going into the drainage ditch, and then the partner was supposed to see, oh shoot, my TikTok. I think something happened with my TikTok. Okay, well, that's too bad. I can't fix it. Oh well, sorry TikTokers. Okay, I don't know if dual streaming is gonna work. So the experiment was weird, and they couldn't see each other very well getting out of the drainage ditch, and Sabatini was trying to set that up. And also Vicente was not recalling much of the experiment, and it was dark. It was really dark, and Vicente said that. And also he kind of didn't do a good job explaining the experiment or even answering questions about it. So Sabatini was getting more energized, and let's see. Yeah, her point was basically, and she got him to agree to this, that she couldn't see, his partner couldn't see him in the dark, crawling out of the drainage ditch. So the point is that no one saw Maya leave the house, and there's no camera angle there. So that is a way she could have gotten out of the house. And then she also went over how there's a door and in the dining room or something. I think I did tweet about that. Maybe it was the next day, because that was the end of that day. But she kind of showed that there was ways Maya could get out, theoretically. Okay, guys, pause. That was only one day, and it took us over an hour to get through. So now I gotta get to my tweets and notes from the other day. The next day. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, that's good. I can see me. All right, I am just scrolling to the next day. Day 9. Okay. Prosecutor Christy Bowles is here. She's in a light brown, perfectly tailored pantsuit. It looked great. Seriously, Christy, that was really, really very nice. It looked great on you. I think it was good for your skin tone as well. We're inside. The judge is sitting down outside the presence of the jury, and Mr. Ryan wants to put something on the record. So then we get into the third-party culprit argument again. So he said, specifically, the line of questioning Ms. Sabatini was trying to go down has to do with impeachment of the investigation, which is completely separate from the court's excluded third-party culprit evidence. And he said, Ms. Sabatini spent 20 minutes laying the foundation to ask this line of questioning into the investigation, which she did. She went over good practices, so then she could impeach about what they did wrong, basically. Or not wrong, really. In this case, it's just that they didn't do, so I don't mean to say wrong. All right. So then, Mr. Ryan is very passionate, speaking quickly. He's citing a case, I believe it's Hull or Hall, which has to do with third-party culpability. He says that the defense wants to show what the police did and didn't do. Ryan is asking for a limiting instruction for the jury to be able to go into certain points of the investigation, but not to point the finger at Jamie Laird. Bowles was like, just like that, and shaking her head and just so over it. And she said that there's no evidence to connect Jamie Laird to the case. The evidence that does suggest his involvement should be excluded, which to me says, what? You just said he wasn't connected in any way. What does that mean? Because then you said anything that suggests his involvement should be excluded. So I don't know what she meant there. I believe Sabatini brings it up later, but Bowles says that Sabatini asked for the jury to see the whole of Mr. Laird's role in the investigation, but there's no way to separate the third-party culpability line of questioning from the line of questioning of the investigation that Miss Sabatini is doing. And Ryan comes in, he says, without us being able to impeach the investigation, it is now an unimpeachable investigation, and we're not even able to point out the inconsistencies in what Vicente said at the preliminary hearing. He said, we're just trying to show what the police did and didn't do. In closing, we will not point the finger at anyone, but I think we can point to the facts of what the police did and didn't do. Sabatini came in. She suggests what the limiting instruction should be, and it was really hard to understand. She didn't have exact language down, and she wanted to leave it up to the court, actually. But the court, later in this, once I get to it, he's going to say that he's never heard of this like limiting instruction thing, because basically they want the jury to know in an instruction. Like when you get a hearsay instruction, you're like, you must only consider this. Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry that TikTok is frozen. Can you hear me? Is it just broken? I'm sorry. I'm just here now. I'm so sorry, Brian. I can't mess with it right now. Something happened with it, but I don't think I'm on at all. But thank you, and thank you for coming here. Basically, with the hearsay instruction, the judge will say, you are going to hear some testimony, and you're reminded to just take it for what the person's state of mind is, not the fact of the matter. So you're not supposed to be like, then definitely this happened because that person knows 100%. You know, you're not supposed to think of it that way. You have to think of it a little differently. So Ms. Sabatini is asking for the jurors to be instructed to, like, just look at it from the angle of the investigation. And it's kind of weird. Okay. Let's see. So then she said, whose rights are we protecting here? Our job is to provide a defense. Part of our job is to question the investigation in a criminal trial where he is charged with murder and he's looking at the rest of his life. We would ask the court to preserve the ruling, but also to preserve Mr. Milliete's rights. So here's what she said, the language she was thinking of. You are not to consider this testimony to any other thing other than how the investigation was handled. So I don't know either the best way to say this. So then she says that she laid out all the foundation, and now she's not even able to ask about the specific things that he did and didn't do when she like set up the things that the investigators shouldn't have done, you know. The judge asked if Sabatini drafted an instruction, and then she was like, I think that we should talk on record of what the language could even be, because I don't even know which way the court is thinking. The judge says, you're on the record asking me to do something that I've never done before. I have to do some research. We had a 20-minute conversation yesterday on what the guardrails were. My role is to call balls and strikes on the objections. I get that you think they didn't do a good job investigating Mr. Laird. From where I'm standing, it looks like the only part of the investigation that you want to question is related to Mr. Laird. We're getting close to intimating that Mr. Laird is responsible. I'm not supposed to give advice. You kept asking me questions at sidebar about what the guardrails are, but I don't know if a question is going to be okay until I see it. I need a drink again. Okay, Sabatini starts talking again. She says, they didn't do things that they said they should do in a missing persons investigation, such as who she last had contact with. It happens to be pertaining to Mr. Laird. And the court, by giving an instruction, can contextualize this for the jury. And she suggested that the two issues of third-party culprit and investigation flaws were being conflated. She said that it seems like when Mr. Laird is brought up at all, it's not allowed. And there are other things that she will point to that were not done well in the investigation. She said, the prosecution really wants to keep this out, and it seems like this is all on the prosecution's terms. And then she suggested that the jury should be able to determine and scrutinize whether they are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt if they have enough information to convict. And leaving out this impeachment of the investigation deprives Mr. Milliete's rights. Christy Bowles is hanging her head between her hands, smiling and shaking it. I could see her face. She's like this. And just kind of like can't even believe. She can't even believe that they're talking about it again. And the judge said, now we've spent 45 minutes talking about this. And Bowles started laughing at that. And Sabatini instantly was like triggered. And like, I don't know. I kind of don't blame her for this because it was uncomfortable, the laugh. And she said, we can laugh all day in open court, but this is serious for our client. And I don't think I'm going in circles, and I'm making a record for my client, because Bowles, she had said that she thought they were going in circles. I think the judge said that too. But Sabatini feels like they're ganging up on her with that. And I get where they're both coming from. It was a lot of the same thing over and over again, but they didn't get the point she was trying to make either, I don't think. Sabatini says Bowles lacks all decorum. And then the judge says that Sabatini is pointing his fingers at him, and she's like, has wild eyes apparently. And that lacks decorum. And he kind of raised his voice there. And that was the big news story of the day, was that the judge, who always has a very calm, quiet, measured voice, he raised his voice and he was like, well, you're pointing fingers at me. It wasn't like yelling. He raised his voice simply. And he said, which lacks decorum as well. So it wasn't much, and it wasn't for very long. But that did happen. That was the drama. Sabatini was like kind of thrown off by that. She was like, I'm just expressive. I'm sorry. Which she is. She is. I think she has a hard time controlling her expressions to her detriment. The judge said that he was worried about time now, and that it was sustained, and he needed to hear more specific questions for her and from her, and he will rule at that time. He can't give any more guardrails or advice. And then he said, there's a concern that you were going to focus on Mr. Laird, and that's as far as you want to get from me. Sabatini says that this should be done now on the record and not in front of the jury, or like having the jury come in and then excusing them to take a sidebar is what she means. And she says, going question by question doesn't matter. It'll all be objected to, and we'll have the same conversation. And so him suggesting that doesn't make sense to her. And she says that she is trying to litigate this now on the record. And she says, it's very vague what my guardrails are. Also, this was really fun to watch. Like, it was good lawyering. And it, like, you know, on all sides, the judge, everybody. It was really interesting for me. And this is right away in the morning. Okay. Then Bowles got to talk. Oh, I wrote, Investigator Rhodes is looking at Sabatini and rocking in his chair. It was weird. And he never usually moves. And then Bowles started to talk, and she argued against this by talking about the 1250 rule of evidence, which I don't know. I think it's California rules of evidence, but I don't know exactly what that is because I'm not a lawyer. Okay. Bowles said they did investigate Jamie Laird. There's no evidence connecting him to the case. The cell phone records don't put him near the house. He was at the hospital where his wife was having a baby, and there's photos at the hospital. I apologize for any expression I made, but it is just frustrating because we've gone over and over this. And she said that she thought that Sabatini was making Jamie into a red herring. And Larry Millete was watching the judge closely at this time. He wasn't looking at Bowles or Sabatini. He was watching like every reaction on the judge's face. Okay. Judge asks if Sabatini disagrees with Bowles' recitation of the investigation. Sabatini says yes. He asks how so. Sabatini says that she just wants to show the lack of steps taken in the investigation. It involves Jamie Laird, sure. I said, Sabatini is really fighting. She says she laid the foundation and the jury should be able to scrutinize the investigation steps. And also, like, the judge already said, like, this was sustained and I want to go question by question. And let's, I'm worried about time. We've already spent so much time. And Sabatini, to her credit, maybe, she just kept going. She's like, no, we're going to talk about this now. And the judge, let her. He could have at any time stopped it. But maybe the point that she made, which was that it's going to be all objected to anyways, like maybe that resonated with him. Because he let her, they talked for a bunch more. I think that it was 45 minutes they spoke in the morning. And then we took a 15-minute break. And then we started the day late at 10. All right. Then let's see. Sabatini said, everything we're trying to do is to impeach the integrity of the investigation. In pre-trial, the court said that was fair game. I was there. He did say that. He did. When he made this ruling about third-party culprit, he said that. Like, you can question the investigation, but you cannot specifically point the finger at anyone. That's literally, I can't explain it any better, but that literally, LOL, I love Bowles. Yeah. I love all the lawyers and the judge. I love the courtroom vibes. Okay. Mr. Ryan, let's see. Is that where I left off? Judge asks whether her questions pertain to any other person. I thought that was a good question. Sabatini says that she has a lot of questions about forensic evidence, security footage, and a wealth of missing information. Mr. Ryan steps in and says that getting cell site information for other people was done, and they want to talk about that. There was a bunch of other people. He named some. I'm for privacy reasons, and also because I don't know the spelling. He named other people that had their cell phones like analyzed and to see where they were during the time like Maya would disappear. There were other people. So he named those people, and like they want to bring that up. They want to be able to bring that up. And so it's not just going to be pointing one singular finger at one singular person. Mr. Ryan says that the investigation was picking and choosing evidence. For example, that he was like, so we're going to be like, look over here, Larry deleted things, but then when another person does it, we're not going to bring it up. He used that example, and he said, but even family of Maya deleted things from their phones too, but it's so bad when Larry does it. Sabatini added that the issue is how this investigation is being presented. I thought she finally got somewhere with that. There are lots of things in the investigation that have to do with not Mr. Laird, like another person that was not investigated enough. And I think the name was Eric, I think, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't want to get into it. Okay. Judge says he wants to research the limiting instructions for the jury and doesn't know if it's ever been done before. He said, you're asking me to do something for the first time. And he said, don't touch anything pertaining to Mr. Laird until we like until I rule on that. And so she was allowed to continue with the cross, but only in the sense that she was going to talk about other stuff. And so, yeah, let's see. Oh, my dogs. Oh my gosh. This is terrible. I'm sorry. Break.
Mom.
No, you can still hear. Don't try to get one. It's fine. Come here, Tim. All right. One dog put away. Okay. Sorry. All right. Okay. So what Sabatini ended up doing was talking about the loud bangs, and she talked about where the footage was found and pointed out that, like, the drainage ditch thing, that you couldn't see anything. I already talked about that, but yeah, we went over that. She said, you can see that there's about a 4-foot metal fence between the Millete home, correct? Vicente says yes. Sabatini asks if a person could get over the fence. Vicente didn't want to, answer this. He said it would depend on the person. And they kind of argued back and forth whether or not a person could get over the fence. He was like, what if they have a physical disability? So it would depend on the person. And so Sabatini was like, well, was May Millete a normal, healthy person? And Vicente's like, yeah. So that was silly. So then they talked about the doors. They talked about the freezer and how it doesn't necessarily seem like you can see that it's a freezer that Larry is wheeling out. And yeah, the freezer thing is interesting. There's apparently 2 freezers. One is more yellowed, one is more white. And Larry, you can't tell, according to them, if he put a freezer in his Lexus or not. So then we went through and we had to see Larry's naked body. They showed all the pictures that Vicente took himself on January 11th, I believe. It was right when the investigation started. And Larry willingly was like, yep, I'm going to get naked right here in my hallway. And he tried to pull his pants up to show his legs for that portion. But he pulled his pants down instead and just used his shirt to cover up his privates. And Vicente was like, he chose to do that himself. And then we had to, I didn't see the privates exactly, but I saw Larry Millete's entire backside. And the point was to show that there were no defensive wounds anywhere on Larry. There wasn't. But it was a lot of photos, and I felt it was a little unnecessary. Larry didn't really have any reaction, it seemed like, during that, but that would be embarrassing. That'd be embarrassing. But maybe he feels vindicated. Maybe he's like, yeah, see, I don't have any defensive wounds. I don't care if everybody sees my butt. I don't know. So they talk about how Larry was cooperative in the investigation. Sorry, I'm trying to go a little bit faster and not read word for word anymore. She talks about how there was someone said that to him that Larry was giving into everything that May wanted to save the marriage. Somebody reported that to Vicente, so they got that out. And then this says, now we're talking about the fact that Maya's brother didn't tell Vicente about the incident where Larry said he wanted to get the other guy. Vicente says that he did not report that incident at that time. And that was already established, so I don't really know why we got into it. But yeah, like that came out in a later interview by Maya's brothers. And the brother talked about that, so it was already talked about and admitted. Hey, Zoe, can you take that upstairs? That's going to be a really loud snack. Be quiet, please, okay? Thank you. All right. Then the next one was the witness that lives behind the Millete home, and she, I felt, was pretty unnecessary and took up way too much time. She wanted to explain a lot. I'm sorry for the chaos. But yeah, that neighbor authenticated the videos and everything. She went through it herself when she saw Maya was missing, and so she went through all of her security footage herself and turned it in willingly. So the next witness was Cameron Laudermilk, and this was just very, very boring cell phone stuff. He was very full of himself, and I know other people thought this as well. He does have a lot of training. He's very legit. That's good for him. But basically, they just talked about all the cell phone pinging. And it was just kind of procedural, you know? Like, Bowles has to bring this stuff in about what he did to go collect all the data. So, yeah. Not going to talk about him very much. So then, yesterday, Christy Bowles, I skipped Wednesday, and it was all cell phone stuff, apparently, and it was all boring, and apparently, like, the jury looked bored as well. That is what my friends from the courtroom said. Okay. All right. Let me see here. On Friday, I think, I definitely went in. Okay, I'll just read it. Christy Bowles for the prosecution has arrived to the courtroom. And I said, I'm sitting outside right now. Your fashion update is as follows. Bowles has on a sharp black pantsuit today with a light colored shirt. Also, another really well tailored pantsuit. And we got on the record, the prosecution sent an email last night at 10 about a witness who will testify today. And Sabatini had a problem with some of the statements. And this was about Genesis, I think. Maybe. I don't know. Am I looking at... Yeah, this was yesterday. Genesis, Maya's sister-in-law, was the witness that was on all day. I did miss the afternoon, some of it. So I did get updates, and it was... This day with Genesis was important. She's an important witness. She was Larry's, like... not willingly, really. Larry would text her a lot about the trouble with Maya. So I'll just get into this, like, for you, because it's just like background. I don't have to read all my individual tweets. But the day before is when Genesis started. She is married to Maya's brother. Maya moved in with them in 2020 briefly for about, she moved in Mother's Day 2020 and then moved out when Larry discovered Maya and Jamie together in a parking lot in a truck. That same day is when she moved out. And so She knows Larry and Maya very well. They were work friends too, like they worked at the same place. So she's a very important witness, knows a lot. They went through a lot of text messages with Genesis, and some of that was boring. Yes. So, yeah, Sabatini said that she was here on Tuesday. She said, out of an abundance of caution, I want to bring up that the mayor was here, took photos, and was using his official mayoral seal to show clear support for one side. Fashion update, Sabatini's forest green suit has a midi-length skirt. Okay. So Larry did reach out to Genesis a lot, especially during the time when Maya lived with her. And he was always wanting to know what she was doing, where she was. He would be like, did Maya disappear last night? And Genesis would be like, she went to Walmart. And it's like, how did Larry know that she was somewhere? Oh, because he was tracking her, like, with a phone and in the car, I guess. So he knew that. I honestly don't know how that would have worked, but like for a prolonged time to have the phone in the car. But I know that that's a fact. But Larry was tracking Maya. There's a lot of evidence for that. And so he would talk to Genesis a lot, and he would say, I've been begging for her to stay. He would say stuff like that. He would want to know, like, just what he could do. He would ask all the time if she was wearing her wedding ring or not, and she always was. Genesis says that all the time he was always anxious, always panicking, and I didn't know what to do. I tried to be a listening ear. And she would tell him that he should just let Maya be, just give her some space, but he just continued to be really pressing and, try to get Maya to move back home. Let's see. There was a message that Larry sent to Genesis that was a screenshot of a message Maya had sent to a friend. Now, Bowles brought up how did Larry have that screenshot? And she didn't say how, but I guess she's implying that he was fine. And so she would ask Genesis, like, how did he have that? And Genesis is like, I don't know. One of the screenshots of the messages was Maya's friend encouraging Maya to leave Larry. And that upset him. So he would ask, like, Genesis, what should I do? And Genesis didn't know. They had a fight about it. Like, Larry went to Maya too, and it didn't go well. They had a fight, and then he got more upset, and then he would text Genesis about it and call. Let's see. In the screenshot, Maya said, sometimes I look at him and remember being madly in love, but I don't feel it. And then Larry wrote, he sent that screenshot, and he said, please help me, Jen. And he thought that he was being made fun of. And Genesis was like, I don't see that. I don't think that. I wrote, jurors look pensive, which they did. They seemed very engaged, very interested. So basically, these are just, like, Genesis, I think, she was a good witness, spoke very clearly. I'm sorry, I'm, like, losing my voice. But Genesis, I think, was on the stand too long. I think she's been on the stand too long. And it's just a lot of repetitiveness. So I don't want to be repetitive into what I tell you either. So I'm just trying to be like slowly going through these things, like me reading them now and making sure I only get the important stuff because it's a lot of the same. Larry said, I really need the family's full support, which then Bowles asked, did Larry tell you he was reaching out to other family members? And Genesis was like, yeah. And that was true. And Larry would talk to like all of Maya's family, all the siblings and stuff, for help with the marriage. And the family mostly just was like, didn't see anything wrong with the marriage. They didn't see anything wrong with Larry, and they were encouraging her to try to make it work, but at the same time they were trying not to be involved too much. And Genesis was too, but she was kind of like forced to be, sort of, kind of be this middleman, unfortunately. Yeah, he asked about the wedding ring. So Bowles talks about this one instance specifically where at 6:13, Larry asked if Maya was wearing her ring, and then also at 7 o'clock, he asked again, and her ring. Like he just was very panicked. Is Maya sleeping in her room, or did she leave? And that was the Walmart trip. He would ask things like that. He wanted to know where she was. He wanted Genesis to tell him all the things about Maya, what Maya was doing. If she didn't respond, if Maya didn't respond to his messages, he would text Genesis. And let's see. Then she said, I don't know what exactly. They were just saying Larry was so desperate. And then Genesis said, I would always encourage him to pray and go to God. I could only say what I could say. I truly, truly wanted to help Larry. And Larry was appreciative of the support, she says, but yeah. Also, one time Larry was on the phone with Genesis' husband, and she overheard him say, friends help you move, but real friends help you move a dead body. So take what you will from that. That's been in the press. That's a big, a specific thing, to think about. I'm sorry. I'm slowing down. I'm trying to get through this. Yeah, so he put the phone in the car to track her, and Maya got really mad about this, and then Larry was really panicked, and Larry said, I think your sister is going to put a restraining order on me. So there was a time when Maya was thinking about that, but she never did, and they talked about that. And then the truck pictures, they actually showed them. Larry took truck pictures of Jamie and Maya together in a parking lot in a truck, and it's from June 27th, 2020. And Larry was like texting Genesis, and he's saying, I caught May. And he didn't know what to do. He didn't know whether to confront them or not. And that was where it ended, like the text messages with Genesis. But Genesis later found out that he did confront them. And then the next thing she knew, Larry and Maya were coming back to her apartment, and Maya was moving out. And Maya was just like looking down, she said. She was crying, very teary-eyed, very clearly upset. And Larry was just calm as a cucumber, and he was like, thank you, for having Maya stay with you. Just, thank you for helping us move her stuff back in. Like, just very, nice to the family and acting like nothing happened, which clearly it did. So yeah, that happened. So she was out of the house for like maybe a month to 6 weeks. Not sure exactly when Mother's Day 2020 was. And then they talked about how he talked to Genesis about the spellcasters. Here we go. Okay. He said, "It's real. We are all God's creation. I've been thinking about using spellcasters, but no black magic, only white magic." Genesis tells Larry about her own mother leaving witchcraft and becoming a Christian. And Genesis said, "I only ever talked about witchcraft with him to convince him to go to God." And it was really surprising to her that Larry would do anything with witchcraft. He was online talking with spellcasters, using them as a therapist. The things that he was saying, he would tell them all about the marriage and what he wanted. And he wanted hexes on Maya to make her sleep in the same bed with him for all eternity. And just to give you a sense of like the evidence we know, it was like a two witches. It was like, but he called them spellcasters. And she would just tell him not to mess with them, and he would keep talking about them. And he said that he just wanted to learn one spell that he could do himself, and that was like $29.99. And Genesis thought that was funny, and he was like, "What?" So I don't know. And then she was like, "How did you even find these spellcasters?" And he said he did market research, and that the $29.99 was a good price for the spells. Let's see. There is a picture, and I believe it's in my comments, but there's a picture of like an altar, and it's like a kind of it's dark lighting with candles. It's like red. It looks like there's like blood like splashed around like all these candles, and a picture of Maya and Larry. And then there's also like what looks like a feather. But yeah, he sent that to Genesis, and that's how sorry, my daughter's laughing. That's how we have that picture. It has been in the press. You can find it out there, but it's creepy. So he was doing spells on his own for $29.99. He learned that, I guess. Let's see. He talks about a spell that he was gonna have done, which is the person bound treated the other person badly and became infatuated instead of love. So he was just like really texting about witchcraft a lot. He said, "I'm really desperate, Jen. I'm just hoping no negative energy comes back and makes it worse." And Genesis said that she was scared. She said, "I'm scared. You don't mess with this." And Larry said, "I'm willing to sell my soul. Maybe I shouldn't say that." And at the time I was hearing this, I thought, you didn't want anything worse to happen, and now you're sitting in, well, jail. You know, you're sitting in a courtroom with a jury that's going to decide your fate, and if you spend the rest of your life in prison. You hope nothing worse was going to happen. No negative energy would come back. And I'm like, I don't know. That just made me think about that. And like, did he sell his soul? Oh my God. Like, I don't know what all happened. And that was really dark. He was threatening to do like report Maya to her work about Jamie, and he was using that as leverage over her, and he was telling Genesis about that. And Genesis at the time just thought he loves May. He wouldn't do anything to jeopardize her job. And she was just surprised and didn't think he was serious. September 23rd, 2020, Larry texts, "She needs to be humbled." And Genesis said, "But I thought you wanted to keep the family together. If you report her, she'll get upset. There's no job, no May." And Larry said, "I do, but I don't want to share custody, and I don't want the kids around another man." So then they talk about how Maya found subliminal messages in the bedroom. They are hidden through white noise. Larry was playing them on the speakers. I don't know what he would have said it was. Maybe he said it was for him to sleep. I don't know if they explained that. I don't know, but it was subliminal messages trying to influence Maya to love him and to be with him. And Maya was very upset about that, and she wanted to leave. And Genesis said that put Larry in anxious mode, and that's why he was threatening about the restraining order, or not the restraining order, the work investigation. So then they talked about how the last time, Genesis ever saw Maya was their New Year's trip in Glamis, where also they were in a trailer together at one time, and they were talking, their friends, their family, and they had a serious conversation with also her sister. And during this family trip that they do every year, this is taking place, Maya said to them that she needed $10,000 for a divorce attorney, and she needed the family to stop answering Larry's calls. She said, "I'm going to file for divorce, and then anything you say to Larry can be used against me, so stop talking to him." And then she said, "If anything happens to me, it would be Larry." Boom. So we had that. And also, Maya did say that she wanted to get through her daughter's birthday trip, which was, I think, January 10th. And Maya disappeared January 7th. So she never made it to that. But she had contacted a divorce attorney that day. And, she hadn't told Larry yet, but Larry knew about that she contacted them somehow. So she didn't make it through the birthday. And also, Maya had plans to go to a friend's funeral, and she was going to go with Genesis. So that was like a future thing, future plan. Another reason. It was at the end of January, and Maya wouldn't have missed that. Okay. Then we were on Cross, and Mr. Ryan was really nice to Genesis, and it was very a playful banter, kind of, because she was kind of sassy a little bit, back to him. It was very light. It wasn't testy. So Mr. Ryan, I'll read this. Ryan establishes that May gave Genesis the idea to work at the same command. And he said, "And you killed the interview." And she was like, "Of course I did." And it was a lot of laughs. So that's the kind of energy. So he kept asking questions, and she would be like, "I don't remember that. I don't recall." He was talking about her specific, hello, Bernie Egan. Hi. They were talking. Sorry, I shouldn't have looked at the chat. I'm so sorry. I lost my place in my head. I'm tired. Maya and Sister Jane were also looking into RVs as the family was going to take a cross-country trip. It was part of their text stream when Jane testified. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The RV thing. Hi, Lucy, by the way. Thank you for coming, Lucy. And it was good to see you. Okay, where was I, guys? Because I was trying to summarize something. He would ask questions, and she didn't know what he was talking about because he was talking about like her initial interviews, and she didn't remember, and she like fully admitted that, and ended up being like, do you have the video? And so then he had to refresh her recollection a lot with video, and that took a lot of time. One of the questions he asked was, you thought May and Larry had the appearance of a perfect marriage. And Genesis said that yes, the appearance. Genesis was very smart with how she answered her questions, very intentional, purposeful. He said, you saw how Larry would buy things for May, how she would always have the newest updated purse, that they would write love notes to each other. And Genesis was like, I don't know about the notes. And he was like, you witnessed them being loving. And she said, yes. Let's see here. So they talked about how Maya and Genesis would walk together to Starbucks every day when they worked together. And they talked on Microsoft Teams a lot too through their job. But Genesis said it was only sometimes. I don't know why Mr. Ryan was bringing that up. He says, was May a private person? And Genesis said that she is. He said, you would share more with her than she would share with you, right? And Genesis said that you could say that, yes. May told you that she was tired of lying, Ryan asked. And then Genesis said yes. And they were little things. And then he asked if it was petty little things, but he had to refresh her recollection with that because she didn't remember specifically saying it was petty, and there was confusion over it. And she said she did not hear when you refreshed her recollection with the video. She said that she did not hear it was petty things, and he was like, okay, that's fine if you didn't hear it. So I thought that was an interesting way to play that off. So yeah, they talked about how Maya moved in on Mother's Day. I said jury looking at Ryan with skepticism. I think that's what I observed. Like, I felt like they looked at him kind of suspiciously. Lucy, I think you were there, right? And I don't know if you thought that. Okay. Then they talked about little things, and she had to keep having her recollection refreshed. I don't know. It was hard for him to, like, get anywhere with that, and it took a long time. It was a long time ago she had her first interviews. It's been 5 years. He was trying to do everything he could to save his marriage, wasn't he? And Genesis said, that's what I felt, yes. Mr. Ryan said, he was willing to do anything to have her back in his life. And Genesis said, to keep the family together, yes. And Mr. Ryan said, basically the whole family wanted them to stay together, right? And Genesis said, yes. And then they talked about how it was like maybe or maybe not a cycle of being good and then not being good. Mr. Ryan wanted her to say that, and she was like, I don't really know. And she said that she knew when, Maya lived with them that obviously their marriage wasn't good at that time. A lot of this is honestly Mr. Ryan just trying to be contradictory and bring up things that make Maya look bad. And yeah, there was a lot of that. Sorry, I'm just looking what else is important to say because it was kind of repetitive, kind of necessary. And I wasn't there in the afternoon. Lucy, I don't know, but I heard that it was not really that important or interesting. That it was more Genesis testifying and Ryan trying to get things to make Maya look bad. Yeah. They went through every single text message, and he's keeps doing that. She's still on the stand, and he doesn't know how long that he will be with her on Monday. She's still testifying. She's still just in the first cross-examination, going through every single text message between she and Larry, and just kind of pulling out things that make Maya look bad. Yeah. That's kind of what this was. Honestly. Some of it's, very valuable, but the cross was, I think, just kind of trying to point out things that make Maya look bad, trying to point out things that are contradictory, maybe to the story that the prosecution's painting, what their narrative is, anything that goes against that or looks like it would go against that, which is the defense's job. I said, I was trying to look and observe the jurors, and I think that some are looking right at Larry, very pointedly, whom I am seated behind. I think he sees this and is fidgeting. It was really weird. During a sidebar, one of the jurors was looking at Larry and I noticed that more were. And I think they were just watching his demeanor because they didn't have anything else to do. And at first, I thought, I don't know. At first I thought they were looking at the media, but then I realized it was Larry, I think. And he was kind of fidgeting. He messing with stuff, straightening stuff on the desk. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't really, it's a lot of little squabbling things. I tweeted, so much, but it's he says something and Genesis is well, I don't know about that, kind of walks it back. Here's an example of that. Even though she didn't talk about her relationship with Jamie, she would mention Jamie all the time. And Genesis was she would mention him, but not all the time. There were walks and talks where she would say his name to me, yes. So maybe some exaggeration from him going on. Yeah. So that's it. That's pretty much it. Not very much more important stuff to point out with Genesis. Any questions, guys? We've been here for a long time. This is our longest stream, I think. And thank you for hanging here with me. Don't forget to like the stream, share it, rewatch the beginning if you need to. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, please. gets the story out there when you do those things. I'm doing this just to get the story out there. I was going to mention that I am going to put my Venmo up in my bio because I never ever wanted or cared about making money in doing this, but I'm spending a lot of money on babysitters. And so I thought maybe a childcare fund was something that people who appreciate my reporting, my independent reporting, most every day, a couple bucks, everything helps, just. So I'm gonna put my Venmo out there, but I want to preface this with, please don't feel obligated to buy me anything or to give me any money. And I hate putting my Venmo out there, frankly, but I spend a lot of time and money on babysitters right now. It's adding up. I'm just solo parenting, and I know people appreciate it, and I do not want to stop doing this. And it was never about money for me. It never will be about money for me. I don't anticipate ever stopping doing this. And yeah, though I may have the Venmo out there, it's not about money for me. It's about this case. It's about this. Like, I really want to do this. So I don't see any questions, but I want to thank you guys all for being here with me. I anticipate doing another Friday night stream. Any feedback, comments, it's always appreciated. Please don't be mean. Please don't. I'm a sensitive soul. Please keep that in mind. And we're just going to keep going. So next week it'll start with Genesis, and I guess we'll go through more text messages. Yeah, I wonder what the jury's thinking. Right now. Like, are they bored? Because I heard they look bored, Lucy. I heard they look bored. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for being with me. And I'm just going to end the stream. I don't have an outro or intro, so I'm sorry. Good night.